Good day, my friends. Have you ever wondered why some people place excessive amounts of merit into certain things? Have you found it odd that despite these interests only having personal value, they continue to put enormous amounts of worth into these things? Ultimately, reality has proven time and again that it cares little for our feelings or what we care about. It will continue to move on, with or without us. But what about those people who can't let things go, who can't move on, who can only ever think about themselves? Unfortunately, this type of story is all too common. So join me today as we explore a very recent example of this madness, as we delve into Haukke Manor. The story of Haukke Manor is much older than one would expect. Long before it became a dwelling for unholy abominations, it was a refuge for the seed-seers of Gridania. Previously, this building was used by the seed-seers as a place to meditate, reflect, and even commune with the elementals of the Twelveswood. After all, the word Haukke is an old Bajali term that means to speak without words. The manor's location outside of the bustling streets of Gridania proper made it a good location for these activities, as it meant that the individuals within would rarely be interrupted. For a while, the manor was more like a temple dedicated to self-reflection, a place where someone might humble themselves before the elementals and understand the world on a scale beyond oneself. And yet, despite the manor's purpose at the time, there was a group of Gridanians that were growing more and more displeased with the Seed-Seers for using Haukke Manor in the first place. These men and women believed that the Seed-Seers were indulging themselves, that for their leaders to live or meditate within such a luxurious place was excessive, and a sign of corruption. At first, many Seed-Seers were confused by these allegations and ignored them for the most part. After all, Haukke Manor was no place for personal pleasures or self-indulgence. It was a place of calm that allowed some the peace of mind needed to become attuned to the movements of our world. However, things only got worse as these radicals steadily gained a bigger following and began to pressure the Seed-Seers even more. They began shouting that they were becoming fat and lazy within the manor, even though one look at any Pajal would tell you otherwise. Eventually, the stress of listening to these dissenters wasn't worth the peace Haukke Manor brought anymore, so the Seed-Seers gave in and sold the manor to a prominent family of Duskwhite Ellison, House d'Artencourt, or more specifically, to Lady Amandine. As a woman of the respected and wealthy d'Artencourt household, Lady Amandine had all the means with which to not only purchase Haukke Manor, but specialize it to her needs. For you see, she was quite the opposite of a Seed-Seer. Whilst they wanted to use the manor to remove themselves and reflect, Amandine wanted to use the manor to show off her wealth and her beauty. Lady Amandine was many things, but above all, she was considered to be very vain. And yet, she was indeed beautiful, as many of her servants would say she was easily one of the most elegant and gorgeous Ellison in the entire world. Because of this, she never missed an opportunity to express or show off just how beautiful she was compared to her guests or the rest of Gridania as a whole. The only saving grace the city-state had was that Haukke Manor was out of the way, so they didn't need to deal with Amandine's posturing every day. But after one catastrophic event, Lady Amandine wouldn't have anything to gloat about anymore, because the day of Bahamut's rampage marked the beginning of the end for Haukke Manor. The dawn of the 7th Umbral Calamity was visited upon this woman. She became a victim of the Elder Primal's wrath, leaving her scarred and disfigured. Afterwards, Lady Amandine hid herself within Haukke Manor, refusing to leave her room or allow anyone to see her in such a hideous state. The many servants of Haukke Manor were at a loss. They did not wish to abandon their lady to her misery, but she refused to let them help. It's rumored that Amandine would resort to all sorts of strange and untested methods of restoring one's complexion, from ointments to creams and all sorts of miracle cures. She tried everything. But the scars from Bahamut's power ran too deep. There was no helping her, not through material means. It's unknown when exactly Lady Amandine would receive a pair of strange guests, but she would receive them without warning. The Ascians had taken notice of her agony, and in her desperation, they saw a willing puppet for their goals. They came to her in her darkest hour, with offers of a miracle that would grant the lady her deepest wish, to regain the beauty she had lost. Lady Amandine ceased her rational thought long ago, and quickly agreed to their terms. The next part of this story becomes difficult to tell for multiple reasons. One is that the rituals Lady Amandine would resort to were utterly barbaric. She attempted something called the Rites of Rejuvenation, a ritual given to her by the Ascians. However, these rites involved the spilling of maidens' blood, and unfortunately, Lady Amandine would sacrifice the innocent women of Gridania for this very purpose. The victims of her rituals would all suffer a similar fate, as their bodies would be found brutally beaten and their faces horribly disfigured. The second reason this story gets turbulent is that Amandine began to carefully cover her tracks. I can't tell when or where certain things began to happen with absolute certainty, but what I can give you is the end result. Eventually, Amandine's dark rituals drew the attention of the Voidsent, and she summoned forth a powerful fiend named Halicarnassus. Halicarnassus looked upon this pitiful woman and smiled, offering her a deal. "Give unto me thine spirit, thine essence, and I shall bestow upon you beauty everlasting." Lady Amandine agreed to these terms and condemned her soul to the void forevermore. The corrupting nature of Voidsent and the void itself would twist the Duskwhite Elysian into something equally beautiful and hideous. She had become a Voidsent herself, whose beauty would never fade, but her hunger for the lives and aether of our world would also never cease. At some point, one of Amandine's servants, an elderly Elysian named Ursondel, ran from the manor. He had become terrified of what his lady was doing and couldn't bear the thought of her noble house falling to such ruin. For not being able to stop her descent into madness, Ursondel blamed himself, and was resigned to eventually turn himself in to the Wood Whalers for his failure. But not before begging members of the Adventurers Guild to storm Haukke Manor and put an end to the blight created by his mistress. As the adventurers invaded the manor, they would discover evidence of void magics, as well as the bodies of servants and guests that were unable to escape. Flies drawn to rotting corpses, the empty husks of victims raised into undeath, as well as the many Voidsent that had been summoned into the manor, now plagued its halls. The adventurers would cut down these demons and monsters one after the other, as they steadily unlocked the hidden chambers of the manor, only to discover more and more evidence of Amandine's crazed mind. But after finding a way to counter the dark rituals of her home, they finally discovered Lady Amandine herself, resting in her bedchambers, a fully corrupted Voidsent. Lady Amandine would be slain, condemning her essence to return to the void with which it was now tied. But unfortunately, that wouldn't be the last we heard from Haukke Manor. The manor's surviving servant, Ursondel, would keep his word and was prepared to turn himself in to the Wood Whalers of Gridania. However, while they didn't dismiss his story, they wanted to perform a thorough investigation into the manor first. But as Wood Whalers started disappearing into the manor, they were never seen again. Upon hearing this, Ursondel knew that the manor must still be cursed, and beseeched the same adventurers that aided in the previous raid to do so a second time. Surely their experience with the manor and the Voidsent would give them an edge that the Wood Whalers didn't. Indeed, the worries of this old man were entirely true, as despite the death of Amandine and the cleansing of its halls, the root of Haukke Manor's darkness had yet to be pulled. The source of the manor's malice was none other than Halicarnassus herself. Lady Amandine might have been the one to start the manor's decline into a living hell, but it was her new master, Halicarnassus, that would ensure the manor remained a tether for which the Voidsent might invade our world. Inside the manor, our adventurers would find that the Voidsent had become much more aggressive. No longer content to linger in the shadows, they would attack and kidnap people indiscriminately. Those unlucky enough to be caught by the Voidsent would be used as a vessel with which to fill the halls of the manor with even more of their fiendish kin. The Wood Whalers were not spared this treatment, as the monsters would attempt to demonize their victims and add more malicious creatures to their ranks. However, the adventurers would not be deterred, as they cut down anything that stood in their way, even though the manor was now filled with even more powerful monsters than before. Eventually, they would come face to face with the source of all this death and destruction, Halicarnassus. Doing battle with this Voidsent was no easy feat, as she possessed dangerous magics that would slay most mortals in a single blow. Not only that, she summoned many Voidsent to her side in an attempt to overrun her foes. She even summoned her newest slave, the Lady Amandine. But despite their combined power, Amandine and her master would fall in battle, purging the world of their existence once more. After the battle was won and remaining monsters slain, the manor was once again brought to a dormant state. However, a grim omen and dark presence yet lingers here, like a deep stain on a silk sheet, leaving many to wonder what shall be done with this place. Especially since Voidsent are still drawn to it because of all the dark rituals that were performed here. Ultimately, this will be up to the leadership of Gridania to decide, and all that will be left of those harrowing days will be Ursondel himself. And that, my friends, is the story of Haukke Manor. Isn't it strange? The people of Gridania accused the Seedseers of excess and want when they used the manor to meditate and reflect. But upon giving into the people's demands and selling the manor, it became exactly what those fools thought it was, as its halls are now soaked in sin. As for the story of Lady Amandine, the line between passion and obsession can become very thin from time to time. This tale is a grim warning. There's nothing wrong with feeling strongly about something, but if you allow that thing to be all that defines you, and it's all you can ever think about, you've crossed that line, and are becoming dangerously similar to the Dark Mistress of Haukke Manor. So until next we meet, be humble, and stay safe, my friends. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Big shout out to my patrons, Rovakis, Potato, Runeteer, The Yellow Couch, Papaya, Cyan, Sage Mouse, and Volvolisoma. If you want to see more lore content in the future, share this with your friends. My dream is to share as much as I find with as many people as possible. And if you do end up helping me, thank you so much in advance. And have a wonderful day.